Hello, so I thought I'd go back and kind of re-record what we did in class earlier today to put a little more time into explaining the break-even points and to go over the analysis again. Okay, so this is going to be the financial analysis that we used, I think, during the first semester for the manufacturing cost activity, except I have changed it a little bit to better reflect our project. And you'll be familiar with a lot of the terms here from last time. Up here we have the number of units that we want to target to sell, so how much we're trying to produce. We have the retail price, so how much we're planning on selling these things in the store, both of these being under revenue. Under the cost of goods sold, this is going to be all the information in regards to what it takes to make the product. Specifically, what's important here is the material cost per unit and the labor cost per unit. And then we have all the time to produce the unit and the production days and things like that are auto-calculated. Under the expenses tab, these are generally going to be what we call fixed costs. Fixed means that they are going to be the same month to month, no matter how much you produce. So for instance, the building lease, the rent we pay every month, is going to be fixed, no matter if we make 1 unit or 1 million units, right? We're going to be paying the same rates, the flat rate, every single month. And that's going to be the case for most of these expenses, specifically building lease, the heat and lights, so the utilities, the insurance premium, and then the office supplies. Okay. It also gives us our base salary for management. Base salary for management. Management is one of those expenses that is not included in our labor. It's more of a business expense. But most of these expenses here are the fixed, but there are a couple here that are going to be variable depending upon how much we produce. And that, of course, would be management. Here, the calculation that is done is basically you have the amount of management you have is dependent upon how much labor you have. So if you have 3 laborers, for instance, that are working on the line, that's going to require something akin to 2 or 3 managements because of the formula that we have here. And then the sales commission would be the other one. Sales commission is going to be the cost of paying salesmen that are selling the product. They call places and get them to buy it. Commission is going to be a percentage. So they're going to, in this case, have 7% commission, meaning for every dollar or price or quantity they sell of the units, they're going to get 7% of that money as their salary. So that's paying them their pay rate, pretty much. Okay. Anyways, after that, we don't really have a lot of additional expenses except tax. That's going to be at a 17.4%. That's a lot, but go figure. Okay. And then, of course, down here we have the totals for profits and loss. So how much we are going to pay for the materials is going to be summarized down here with our revenue. So that'll give us what we call a gross margin, which is how much money we're going to be making just simply based off of the product itself, meaning the what we sell it for, and then the cost of the material and labor. Down here we have all of the summary of expenses that I was just going over, the total expenses per month, or total. And then we have the down here the net profit loss. So that is going to be how much money we make or lose in the end. If it's a positive number, that's how much we're making, how much money we're making after all of the costs have been removed. If it's a negative number and it has little parentheses around it, that means we have lost money after all of our work. We've lost money, which is no good. Okay. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be calculating what is called the break-even point. The break-even point in simple terms is just the first time that you're going to start seeing a profit after purchasing all of your materials and machinery and paying for your labor and all this stuff, right? There's a very large investment initially when you're trying to start your own business or your own production facility. You have to buy a lot of materials for the building. You have to start paying people immediately with their salaries, even if you haven't produced anything yet. There's a lot of research and development costs, things like that. So the break-even point is after all of those costs have been accumulated and you start making the product and start selling it, at what point are you going to make money? And that is shown in the form of one or two things. Number one, how many units you're selling, how much of your product you're selling, or how much money you have to take in from selling the product. The more common one, I believe, is going to be just figuring out how many units. Okay, and so that's what we're going to be using. So the break-even point is calculated with this formula right here. That's going to be our fixed costs, meaning the rent and insurance and all that stuff, the things that are at a flat rate every month, divided by the price of our unit, so how much we're selling it for, minus the variable cost for the unit. And the variable costs are going to be costs that are solely dependent upon how much we are producing. That's why we use the term variable there. And the two variable costs we have are going to be material and labor, because material is going to be, the cost of the material, how much material you're going to use is solely dependent upon how much you're producing, right? You need a lot less material to produce 10 units than you do for 10,000 units. And then labor, you have to pay people more and longer to produce more, right? So those are variable. They change with our production flow, whereas the fixed costs do not. We're going to be paying the same rate no matter what for most of these costs right here. Okay, so that's our break-even point formula in a nutshell here, and that is going to be the end goal. It's going to be the end goal. So all we're going to do is we're going to, do a little research on what the average market value is of our product. I'm going to use the same chair example we used last semester for the manufacturing cost activity. And I'm just going to come up with numbers here. I'm going to say $100 we're going to sell a high-end chair for, okay? And then we got to calculate the material and the labor cost. So I'm going to go to the material tab, and I'm going to keep things very simple. You can have less than 3, you can have more than 3 raw materials, but I'm just going to keep it simple here. I'm going to say the metal frame is one raw material. I'm going to say the plastic covering is another, and then I'm going to say the screws are the last one. Okay, we'll do the material cost for each part. To purchase one metal frame, it's going to be, let's say, around $7. For plastic covering, we'll say it's about $5. And for the screws, we'll say they're about 10 cents a piece. And now we're going to calculate or how many parts that we actually need for each. So for the metal frame, we just need 1. For the plastic covering, we need 1. And then for the screws, we'll say we need about, I don't know, maybe 10 screws. Okay, so in the end, the material cost in total, when it sums everything up, is going to be $13. And what's nice is this number is going to show up on the analysis tab. We don't have to manually put that in. And if you have any comments or sources of information you want to write down here, you can. That's going to be right there. And then we'll go down here to the labor cost tab and then come up with the cost of our labor. And this is where the process flow chart is going to come in handy. We're going to have to list out some of our process steps to figure out how much labor we need and therefore how much to pay for. Again, I'm going to come up with stuff here. We'll say the first step in the process is place the metal frame on the assembly line. Okay. For the second step, we'll do, maybe place plastic covering on metal frame. And then we'll say maybe screw in screws. And then we'll say remove chair from the line. Again, you can go less than that, probably more than that, but I'm just going to keep things simple for this example. So then we have to determine whether we have skilled or unskilled labor. Unskilled labor, remember, is going to be the kind of employees that don't have a lot of skills they learned from school or from years of experience. It's kind of like work that anyone can do. So for placing the metal frame on the line, I'm going to call that an unskilled labor necessity. And then skilled, of course, is going to be the kind of employee that does have some sort of skill they acquired from school or training or years of experience or things like that. That's more valuable because not everyone can do what they can do. So we're going to say placing the plastic covering on the metal frame is a skilled labor job because maybe they are running a machine that requires some sort of training. Screwing in the screws, same deal. We'll call that skilled labor because maybe they're running a machine for it. And then lastly, to remove the chair from the line, we'll call that unskilled and doing it manually. Okay. Then we talk about the number of laborers for each. We'll do maybe one laborer for each. Okay. If you're having the same laborer perform two different tasks, you don't have to put the labor down for that specific process step, but we're going to assume that we do have a laborer for each task. The time that is required to perform each process step, we'll just estimate here. We'll say about 10 seconds to put it on the line. We'll say about 40 seconds to place the plastic covering on the metal frame, maybe 60 seconds to put the screw in, and then to remove the chair from the line, we'll do another 10 seconds. This column here is going to just convert that to minutes. So 60 seconds is 1 minute, which is why we have that comparison here. And then the slowest time to produce a unit has to be at least 1 minute because the longest step in the process, screw in screws, which is a minute long, is a minute. So that is going to mean we have to take at least a minute to assemble each chair. Okay. And then lastly, the labor rates per hour. So we're just going to match up the unskilled and skilled labor from the box down here. For unskilled labor, I did about $15 an hour because I believe California minimum wage is going to be that much soon. So we'll do $15 for the unskilled labor. And then we'll do the skilled labor. So $36.50 for the other two, like that. And in the end, our labor cost is going to be $1.72. And again, this number is going to be transferred to the analysis tab. Cool. Okay, so we have everything filled in here except the number of units that we want to sell over a period of time. And so now we're going to try to calculate the break-even point. Okay. So again, that is going to be the number of units that we want to sell in order to first start making money. For instance, let's just say we start by just making one unit real quick, right? We'll type in 1 there. Look what happens. We see that we end up having $15,000 or $15,938 in expenses between the utilities, the rent, the management salary, sales commission, and all that stuff. And so in the end, with our net profit and loss, we're going to lose a little over $13,000 here because we're only producing 1 unit. We're throwing this much money at producing just 1 unit, right? So the more we put in there, the more money we're going to make. And so our goal is to have this net profit / loss for the break-even point to be as close to 0 as possible, if not just a little bit over 0, to figure out how much we need to produce in order to start making a profit. I mean, in the real world, we want this number to be as large as possible, right? In the positive direction. But for this specific assignment, we just want to calculate the break-even point. And so we'll go ahead and try to use our formula here. Keep in mind that when we try to use it immediately with this total expense number, it's not going to be very accurate because both the management salary and the sales commission are variable costs. I mean, they're business costs, but they're not fixed, right? So they're kind of variable. These salaries are dependent upon how much we are producing. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of them by management and by sales commission, okay? And when we do that, since we still only have 1 unit that we're producing per month right now, we'll see that the total expenses per month, the flat rate, is going to be $3,431, okay? Now that should stay constant regardless of how much we make, as long as we're producing it in less than a month. So for instance, if I change the quantity here to like 100 shares that we're producing, it's still going to be underneath a month, right? Production time, calendar, it's rounding up to a month, one right here. But that cost is the same, $3,431, because it's fixed, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this fixed cost, and we're going to, right, the fixed cost here, and we're going to divide it by how much we're selling it for minus our variable costs. And again, we're selling this for, right now, 100 units. $100. We're selling each unit for $100. And it's costing 13 plus 172 is $14.72. So it's costing $14.72 in variable costs. So we'll go to our calculator here. Let's see. And our fixed, again, is going to be $34.31. We'll divide that by, let's see. Now we're going to subtract our $100 cost, our sales price, by $14.72 for the variable cost. And so we have 40.23 chairs we're supposed to produce to start initially making money. So let's try typing that in and see what happens. So we got 40.23. Go up here, we'll do 40.23. And in the end, just look at this. We have about 4 cents in profit or loss. So that's pretty close to zero. That's exactly what our aim is supposed to be. Okay. If I was more accurate, 23217, 23217, it's going to be even closer to accurate. And now we're down to a profit of 11 cents. So, but as you know, we can't produce 40.23 chairs. We got to produce 41. If we try 40, it's going to be just under, right? We have $16, we're at a loss. We can't do that. So 41 shares is going to be giving us a profit of $54. And so 41 is going to be what we call our break-even point. That is going to be the number of chairs we have to sell initially in order to start making money, just barely making money, which is shown here. And so down here, this cell is just connected to the one up top. This shows that the break-even point is 41 chairs. Okay? And that is the gist of it. Be careful to, when calculating the break-even point, you want to make sure the management and sales commission is probably gone, because those are not fixed. That's the downside of the break-even point. It's assuming everything is a fixed cost for your expenses, which is not always true, right? Sometimes you do have management costs and sales commission that's not under labor. So it gets a little iffy and more complicated. But at the very least, without this stuff, we can calculate the break-even point. So we'll do that. Okay? That is where I'm going to stop the video. Let me know if you have any questions in class.